order the meeting of the Tiverton School Committee. If everyone could rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to assume there's no one for open forum. I think this is really the first time that we've had a regular meeting with no audience.
Well, because it's baseball season.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah. I don't know. We don't have any parents usually coming anymore anyway.
Okay.
It's
Alrighty.
just a nice night.
Well, it's a nice evening, so we're going to get through this quickly.
Oh, great.
All right, so consent agenda. We have school committee meeting minutes from March 25th, April 10th for both regular and executive session, as well as regular session minutes for April 22nd. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Address this.
You want to pull off something?
I know, she's like,
Is it one of the minutes?
yes, it's for March 25th.
So we'll pull those off?
Okay, so you want to make a,
Need a second?
I think you can just pull them off.
You can
and then
pull
we
that
can
off,
make a motion for the
and
rest.
then make a motion for the rest. Okay, so we're going to pull off the item number 1, special meeting minutes, March 25th. Do I have a motion to approve the rest of the school committee
I'll make that motion.
consent agenda?
Second?
All in favor? Okay, what do we have for the minutes of March 25th? Let me just pull them up real quick, Kim.
Okay.
Okay,
I noticed we mentioned the liaison for the school committee and the liaison for the school.
yes.
But we didn't mention, there's people in here that we didn't put in here as we were going to appoint them or send them an invitation to go to the meeting.
We, for example?
Excuse me, Sue Craven and Sarah Kraeger's just here as a liaison. She's not here as a search committee member.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so why don't we table these minutes, ask them to be adjusted? We need to add Sue Kraeger and Sarah. Is there anyone else we missed?
Well, Kim?
No, I just had a question about the alternates, but other than that, no.
And-
It was just, I noticed that they were missing, and it was strange because it said the liaisons, but we had already voted on liaisons on at the March 18th meeting. So maybe that's where we got mixed up, but yeah, because
Okay.
Sarah was appointed for the search committee, and then we did all the voting.
Did we,
I should have-
and I don't,
Other adjustments, but other than that?
No, that's it. This is other questions.
okay, so we'll, and I don't remember whether or not we appointed liaisons again at that meeting, because you're right. We had appointed those liaisons at the previous meeting, and I'm pretty sure it was reflected in those minutes.
Yeah, it was. I have them.
So we did mention it again at that meeting?
We did? Okay.
25th.
Okay, so it doesn't hurt to leave it there, because it really is just repeating what we
Right.
had done previously.
Okay.
But we do need to add
Sue.
Sue Craven and Sarah Kraeger as representatives on the screening committee, and I did not notice that those were missing.
So
Go ahead.
Sarah's here.
Where?
As a liaison.
As liaison.
As liaison, but not as a
Yeah.
member of the screening committee. And there's no mention of Sue Craven?
No, I know Sue wasn't here, because I was looking for her also. I went to that meeting of that actual night. Sue was mentioned. Okay, so we want to table
She
these
was
minutes. Are we
appointed
gonna?
to the search committee as well. Okay. So 2 additional search committee members, Sarah and Principal Craven.
And I believe Sarah was 5-0, and Sue Craven was 4-1 opposed.
What?
2-1.
So what are we doing with
Okay.
these minutes? Are we tabling them? or
We're
just
we're
gonna
going to pull
adjust-
these minutes and ask that they be
Tabled until.
amended, and then re-presented to us at our next regular meeting, okay?
And I did have a question. We were talking about alternates if
Yes.
someone didn't accept the invitation that was sent out.
Yes.
Now, there's alternates on the email
Meeting.
that was sent. Are they going to be at the meetings, or was
We-
it just for the invitations?
We had one, we did invite one alternate because we had a regular member who we had voted to apply, who
And she was-
ended up
She
declining after the
declined.
fact.
I remember getting notice of that somewhere. I don't know.
I believe I put that in the email to all of you.
Okay.
So the alternate took her
Yes,
spot.
yes.
Okay.
And it was one elementary parent for another elementary
Yes.
parent.
Okay. All right. That's all I had.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, good catch. All right, moving on to general business. We have some policy first and second reads this evening. We'll start with the first read for policy 1201, McKinney Vento Homeless. And this is a first read to replace policy 1200. Mrs. Kraeger?
Thank you. Yes, the McKinney Vento Homeless Assistant Act policy ensures that children and youth experiencing homelessness or who are in transition have full and equal access to a free, appropriate public education. It is designed to remove barriers to school enrollment and attendance and academic success, and to ensure equity and dignity for our most vulnerable students. This update also brings our policy into full alignment with Every Student Succeeds Act of 2016. Some of the key highlights of the district's policy includes immediate enrollment of students, even if they do lack typical documentation such as proof of residency or immunization records. It includes school stability. Students have the right to remain in their school of origin for the duration of their transition and through the end of the academic year. Transportation, upon request, transportation will be provided to and from school. Access to services, students are entitled to the same programs and services as their peers, including Title I, free meals, special education, and preschool programs. The district has a designated local liaison, and I play that role right now in identifying students, facilitating services, resolving disputes, and training staff across the district. So I'm recommending this policy for a first read.
Okay, we're not going to be taking a vote on this evening, but I will afford people the opportunity to ask questions. You answered one of the questions that I had as to who the liaison is. That's you. And I wrote down here why the policy. It takes us in line with Every Student Succeeds. I'm trying to remember what else I would have been thinking on this, but I have no other questions. Anyone else have any questions? Kim?
Is there a stipend for that position, the coordinator? No?
No.
Okay.
So if you don't require proof of residency, transcripts, immunizations, but do we follow up on that?
Of course.
Or it's just,
Yes, of course.
okay.
We work with the other school districts where the student was previously to obtain those, or with, the foster parent and DCYF.
But
But it can't stop them
the
from
intent
entering
is
the
let's
school.
make sure they're in school being educated as quickly as
Correct.
possible and not have that.
Right,
But we'll still follow up.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
But you're saying DCYF, but some of these students are just,
just homeless, and are
Not
not
in a
involved with
DCYF
DCYF,
situation.
so then obviously they wouldn't be included in that sort of process to obtain any immunization records or things like that.
Okay.
But if they are, then we work with them.
okay, great, thanks.
For the sake of understanding, one of the bullets on here says migratory children and youth who are living in the situation as described above. Would that, and I hate to ask this question, but it's a hot topic nowadays, right? Would that include undocumented children?
Yes.
And so we wouldn't necessarily, I mean, we could be the first school of record for any child who would fall under this.
Absolutely.
It's not necessarily that a student is homeless and moving out of another school.
Not
You
necessarily.
could be taking in a child who's never been to school. Okay,
That's very true.
okay. That was, again, for my understanding.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, that's the first read. The next one we have is policy 566, classroom observation for first read. Again, Mrs. Kraeger?
Thank you. The purpose of this policy is to promote transparency, and family engagement in the educational process while ensuring we maintain a safe, respectful, and minimally disruptive learning environment for our students. The policy provides a structured framework for how parents who request to observe their child or their child's educational program within our school setting. Some key points of the policy include a formal request process, and that's a written request that must be submitted to the building principal or designee. There's a duration and conditions of the observation. They are limited to 30 minutes and may not include any form of recording or photography. Confidentiality, that just is in alignment with FERPA IDA and Section 504. We will ask observers to sign a confidentiality agreement acknowledging the legal requirement to protect the privacy of our students. And then oversight and security. So a school administrator or designee would be present with the parent during that observation. So I recommend this policy for first reading.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
This seems like it's geared towards special education students, but we have students that come in that are new to the district and they want to just see the school before their first day of school, and there are students in the building at the time. Is that going to fall into any of this, or is this just special ed?
No, it would encompass all observations. So although there are some definitions of IDEA and 504 in here, it would still, it would still encompass those families that are coming in just to observe a preschool program or a kindergarten program, or if they're coming to visit any grade level.
Okay, because in the past, we used to have students come into the high school that were going to be coming to the high school, and they would walk around with the Peer Helping Network and just look at the classrooms. And
Yeah, so this
that,
changes that a little bit for
Okay.
just, again, to align with all the privacy policies
okay,
and
so
confidentiality.
would you have a student sign that, or just the parent?
Just the parent, it would be an adult, or if the parent brings an educational consultant or something like that with them, but not necessarily the student who's under 18.
Okay.
Does that sound right then?
So this is new, this isn't replacing
So this is new.
anything?
Good question. I'm not sure why Tiverton didn't have one previously. One of my guesses, so most visits come when a child is going to be placed in a special education classroom or program, the majority of visits. So my guess is that we had a policy for the region, and that was used when parents came to view the regional programs. So again, I'm not sure why Tiverton has not had one, but it's important to have one for the reasons I mentioned.
And clearly, as you came to us from the region and were fully versed on their policies, I'm assuming that you're also taking a look through all of ours to ensure that we have what we need, ergo, this new one.
Exactly.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yes. Here we go. It just makes me think about parent volunteers in general, like being in a classroom, not for the purpose of observing, but they're in that space. Has that resumed? Like that was a thing and then COVID probably wasn't happening. Just wondering if anything ties into this policy in which we would, again, want to protect confidentiality by getting a
Yeah,
signature.
right now, this policy really is just about observations, not like
Right.
parent chaperoning a field trip or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'd actually,
Don't we have a
We have
volunteer
a
policy?
We have a volunteer policy.
so
And
that.
does it include,
so that
like-
captures.
Confidentiality as well? It does. Perfect.
Highly stressed.
Okay. Good questions. Okay, hearing no others, we will move on then to item C, Policy 1024. This is a second read of the School Improvement Team Policy, which is going to be Policy 1024, and we will also take a vote, if 1024 is approved, to eliminate 1023, which is what it is replacing. So for 1024, we did have a first read on this 2 weeks ago. I would like to get a motion to approve policy 1024. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? I do want to call out a couple of minor formatting issues that are on the copy that we have in our packet, Sarah. For example, on the alignment under the policy itself, it seems like the pages are not working well. And it looks like we have a section that remains highlighted in yellow that needs to be removed. And then under the duties of the school improvement team title, under that yellow section, I see a number 3. I don't know what that is for. So, again, this is just cleanup. And I know, Kim, you had maybe a grammatical issue?
That was with one of the other ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, when it prints out, the 3 doesn't show up.
Yeah, I don't see the right.
Really?
Yeah, it's on the
On the
attachment.
digital, yeah, it doesn't show up. Isn't that strange?
Okay. So it's just my eyes then. Let's just make sure that, before you guys put it on the website, that it looks good. All right, any other
Can I just go back to
questions?
because I needed a minute to look it up.
Yep.
We do have a policy 1014 and 1015 regarding visits to the schools. So can we just make sure that whatever we're proposing for what was the first read?
Classroom
Can I,
observation policy.
Yeah, that
566?
those all sort of jive.
Absolutely.
So it's 1014 and 1015 are the two policies?
Good catch, Deb.
I used to be on policy.
They don't call her the policy queen for nothing. Thank you.
And they may, Sarah, I don't know, but I just remembered that we had a couple, so let's make sure that all 3 of those are all just in.
It's obviously one of the problems with us having as many policies as we do. We're working on it. All right, good catch. So are we in a position where we're going to approve 1024? Do I have, show of hands, all those in favor? Okay, 1024 is approved. Do I have a motion to repeal policy 1023, which 1024 just replaced?
So moved.
I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Policy 1023 is repealed. Thank you. All right, next up, we have a vote to approve the new NEA contract. You all have received a copy of the contract in your packets. We have discussed this in executive session prior to tonight. I think that I first of all want to thank the negotiation team, representing the school department, Dr. Sanchioni, Mr. Andrade, representing the school committee, Mrs. Polish and Ms. Sherman. And I also want to thank NEA leadership. From what I understand, it was a very fruitful and collaborative process. And I do also want to thank Mrs. Kraeger, I believe you were also part of this? And I apologize for missing you from the get-go. But I just want to thank everyone involved because the NEA contract is a rather large one. I do also want to thank our teachers who, recognizing our budget constraints, have agreed to a very light increase in this coming school year at 1.5%, which is by far the lowest increase of any town employee. So again, I want to thank them for standing by us, and with that said, do I have a motion to approve the NEA contract for the period 2025 through 2028? Is that, I don't have it open.
I'll make a motion to approve, and I will also throw in thanks to Attorney Scungio for quickly getting through any language changes that we had.
Excellent. Is there a second?
I'll
Second that motion.
Is there any discussion?
I too, I'm sure Jocelyn and I want to acknowledge as well, and I'm sure Director of Finance will as well, is the acknowledgement by our teaching staff, the budget crunch and the budget challenges, and really working closely with you on trying to address those. And I do want to really call that out because we had a lot of discussion around it.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing nothing. All those in favor? Unanimous. It's approved. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have item F, vote to approve one layoff and one recall. Dr. Sanchioni.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In your packet, we provided you a document, and we've highlighted the two individuals you're referring to. We're recalling Luke Bain back to the high school band position that took place. We're not adding back any positions here. A teacher who was bumped into that position was able to bump into a vacant special education position, which allowed us to recall Luke. And then the other individual listed there is a position that, unfortunately, to the budget constraints, we need to eliminate. And so I'm asking your approval tonight to recall Luke and to vote to lay off the other position listed there.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to recall Luke Bain and approve the additional layoff?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I just have a quick question.
Yes.
At what point do we look at the budget to see if there's anything that can be eliminated?
As far as?
We have a number,
As soon as we have a number
right?
for.
Like if we want
From
to
the
cut
town?
other things.
We will, yeah, what
Yeah.
the process is this way, and we'll speak to this a little bit more further in the agenda. The town council is going to give preliminary appropriation to us. It's one number. And then after it becomes final, which is after the hearing and after they take their final vote, which I anticipate will be sometime in June at this point, we have 30 days to get our line items in order and make our budget line items comply with the total that's been appropriated. It is at that time we'll go through each and every one of the lines and discuss the individual pieces.
Okay. Are we expecting any more after this layoff? This is,
I think we're going to speak to that a little further down on the agenda tonight.
okay.
I think we will.
And a lot of these are layoffs that we need. Well, I'll wait, because, yeah, you're right, we'll talk about it
We're
when we
gonna
talk about
discuss it
we'll
more.
talk about it when we talk about the budget. I'll
Yeah.
have my questions too,
Yeah.
Kim, because I have questions as well.
Just give us a few more minutes.
Sorry.
That's okay.
It's the next item.
All right, so did we take a vote?
No.
All right, all those in favor? Kim? No, okay, 4-1. All right, next on the agenda, item G, year-to-date April 2025 budget versus actual. Mr. Andrade?
So in your packet tonight, you have the backup detail that you'll see first, and then I'll send this to the town council tomorrow for their future agenda. Excuse me, but year-to-date spending total $27, almost $28 million, or 76% of our FY '25 projected budget. We continue to decline in the deficit area of another $100,000, or $781,263 year-to-date compared to the original budget. This month, the shortfall was two reasons. One being our payroll implementation. There was some additional fees that were unplanned for the appropriate pension reports that we have to send to TIA and CREF, and also the monthly pension transaction fees associated with these reports being sent to them, so they're properly recorded for our employees' pension. Next is, we had some out-of-district Q4 increases. So again, that's not only placements, it's also transportation to provide these individuals to the correct location. We will continue to follow Rhode Island general law to communicate appropriately with all government bodies as we experience a current year deficit situation for the first time, maybe ever in Tiverton, but as long as I can remember. Any specific questions?
I'll let the other members ask first. I hate going first all the time. Does anyone have questions?
I'll ask one. Paycor. When we joined Paycor, that wasn't it's an additional fee? It
So,
wasn't planned? How was that?
I wasn't here when the agreement was adopted. When I came on, it's when we first started implementing. So no, according to Paycor, this was additional fees for our pension. They had to customize our reports.
And how much are we talking?
It was $5,000 and $200 a month.
Oh, my God.
Okay, that wasn't, you still have the floor, I'll let you, sorry.
So now does that still become cheaper than where we were before?
Yes, it's still.
Paychecks?
Yeah, Paychecks was about $14,000. Paychecks actually owns Paycor now, but
Right.
they were approximately, it was like $13,000-$14,000 less, and that's still the case. It's just unfortunately this unexpected implementation fee.
So how
We
much
have-
is it saving us now, do we know? Just
This
off the
year-
top of your head?
This year, we're probably flat, but next year we would probably, I have about probably $10,000 savings compared to FY 2024 to give a good estimate.
Is that going to be because we're going to have less employees, or is that?
Both, but it's
Okay.
cheaper regardless of the employees. It's still a cheaper rate.
Okay.
Yeah, we're paying, right now, for instance, we're paying like $2,300 a month, and previously it was over $3,000, so it's a significant savings month over month.
So now you're talking about getting a new accounting software down the road. Is there a software that would do payroll? It would be included with payroll? So we wouldn't need Paycor?
Yeah, I just advise against that when you just purchase software now. I wouldn't recommend it.
I'm just saying, down the road.
Yeah,
Way down the road.
every software is usually a full soup package, but depends what package you want to take. For instance, the company I've been looking at is Tyler Technologies, which is Munis. They'll do anything from payroll, HR, finance, it's just what package do you want?
So eFinance Plus, do they even offer that package
They
for
do as
payroll?
well. They do,
They do.
at a high rate, and again, I have been dissatisfied with their service.
Okay. All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Along those lines, what do you find, because I know you're a member of the Director of Finance, Business Manager, what do most districts use? that
Munis.
Munis? Yeah.
26 out of 39 Rhode Island districts.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
okay.
And I know many, Mass and Connecticut as well.
And I know we're not going to switch right now, but what would the cost be to switch over to use it?
The initial price was about $130,000 implementation.
Okay.
And then the same year over year.
Yeah, so the price would be the same, but it's
Same
that
operating
first year
expense
getting
over-
it
yeah,
up.
Yep, for a one-time implementation of like $130,000.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to, I was taking a look at this today, and clearly I'm on the last legs of my color ink. Just to bring us back to the deficit discussion, right? Because we are approaching the end of the fiscal year, And the question remains, I think, Brandon, when we were at the town council meeting last night, you mentioned, I think to them, that we could go as high as $900,000 at the end of the day.
Yep.
At this year-end deficit. And we're going to have to work with the town on how we're going to manage that, as far as the repayment options. Learning from this now, the health and medical premiums accounted for, and I like what you've done with your reports to show that, okay, well, we're going to take Rob from Peter to pay Paul at a line item level. And I can definitely see the trends where the cost containment has resulted in a lot of these negative budget transfers, meaning taking money out of one account and giving it to another, which is exactly what we needed to do. But at the end of the day, we have $300,000 in excess medical plans. I did have a question on statewide transportation, $335,000, so there's a good chunk of it right there. Tuition to other sources, because it's a number of different accounts here. We have private sources, education services, et cetera. They had a net of under $100,000, so it's not quite as bad as I thought it would be. But it's still part of this issue, right? If we're budgeting to the penny, any movement in out-of-district placements, any movement in statewide transportation, anything can throw us off here. And we all have to, I think, learn from this and find ways so that in the next fiscal year, we, A, don't encounter this ever again, especially not next year, and B, learn how to manage our budget items such that we perhaps have a little bit of a cushion that allows us to have these unexpected expenses, not put us in a deficit position. Because I would never want us to say, okay, well, we have 3 new children this month who came into Tiverton, and we are now busing them to Providence every day for special needs, and say, okay, well, we're going to have to take it from curriculum to pay for it. We don't ever want to be in that type of situation. So I think we're going to have a lot more financial discussions on how we're going to handle these things moving forward. Anyone else have any comments?
I mean, I guess go ahead, Jocelyn, on this. Go ahead.
Just kind of caught my eye, the maintenance and repairs obviously was well over. That's Fort Barton and, is it the high school heating issues from January, February?
No, so what line item, Jocelyn?
Sorry, maintenance and repairs, HVAC,
There's a number next to it.
54,322.
Yeah, that's zero because the gaming revenue covered those district-wide repairs.
Okay.
That's why, yeah, it's
and-
originally 5,000. I
Okay.
took the 5,000 away because gaming revenue covered. They gave, town council was graciously gave us $100,000 for district-wide repairs.
And that's all resolved and we're good?
Yeah, everyone's, thankfully, knock on wood.
And then statewide transportation, or do we have movement for like what our transportation is going to look like next year? Like I know some of that went through. We don't really see a lot of benefit for the region changes here
Correct.
in Tiverton, but any other opportunity for us?
Yeah, so you might remember we discussed a little bit in executive, but we're moving forward with bringing, essentially bringing statewide in-house, which should be provided by first student at a savings of 200,000 plus. I have my 4th meeting on Thursday with Sarah and Mario and Nicole Martin, the general manager for statewide, so actively discussing, making sure. They've been great, even though we're leaving, they've been very helpful, make sure we dot our i's, cross our t's.
Good.
They don't want to see us leave, but they see the savings.
Obviously, we don't want to see us
Because I did
leave.
have to, I did have to provide my contract to prove those savings. That's
Yeah.
part of the Rhode Island general law. And then on the other side, Sarah, myself, General Let have been working with Portsmouth and Bristol Warren to see if we can do collaboration, because we have a lot of students that might attend Meeting Street, Sergeant Center, you know, a lot of duplication, you know,
Yes.
so.
That's great.
Yep, so, and then on the transportation side, I've been actively working with Peter and Ben to finalize that contract, and there's still a couple things to take care of before it goes again in front of the school committee, but I think we've done good, because projected right here at 1.8, I'm coming in almost 5% less. That has something to do with consolidation. I was able to eliminate one bus right now, hopefully more in the future.
Yeah.
One of that buses, we only need one pre-K now that pre-K is being at Pecasset, both classrooms. So that was able to eliminate one bus, including a bus monitor. Also, first student was able to give us a $20,000 credit right off the bat on the first invoice. And there's some other things we've been working through for that, basically almost 4 to 5% savings year over year.
And do you see other opportunity to look at existing runs?
Yeah, so part of the contract language that was in there, but we just kind of tweaked it a little bit just to kind of spell it out again, is first student, if we request it, first student will come in front of the school committee and review those routes, and we have the authority to approve those routes before the first day of school. So they have, what I did was, it used to be 20 days. I asked them to do their routes 45 days in advance to give us enough time to review and
Great.
approve those routes. It's 5 days before school we have to approve it.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other discussion on FY '25? Okay, next, FY '26 budget discussion. Who wants to kick it off? Mr. Andrade.
Oh. So, in front of you tonight is a packet, and basically shows what we shared with the Budget Committee and Town Council. I also gave you a nice little report this evening as well, which is similar. The next items that are mentioned in the memo are kind of, just shows if we were to get a lower town appropriation, how much it would be, how much our, personnel would be stripped, if you would. What is it? Where is that? It's in your packet towards the back where the revenue shows 3% and 2%. So, the town council preliminary told us last night, we should expect a 3.5% appropriation preliminary, as Diane mentioned. However, they do have some housekeeping to do tonight. And then 30 days from now is the final budget. But this is where we kind of sit today. Again, it shows the 4%, 3%, 2%. And as we all know, our budget's been stripped to actuals. Unfortunately, there's no cushion in our budget today, so, which is to be expected with 20-plus layoffs right now, but any... No, this is kind of just an FYI for you guys. It's all items you've seen before, just kind of keeping you up to date with, the same items that I presented before the Budget Committee and Town Council, and just keep it in front of you as we kind of get to the end point.
So, right now, it is 3.5%. Our request was 4%. And so, as a result, we're going to have to make some cuts.
Yeah.
How are you anticipating we're going to fill that gap?
Well, as you know, we've eliminated or reduced our expense accounts down to bare bones, as Ben just said. We're budgeting to the penny, so it unfortunately leaves us the only place to turn is personnel. So we've had some preliminary conversations with the principals. We're meeting again on Thursday, and we'll begin to bring our personnel back to a number that will balance our budget.
Okay. So, Kim, to answer the question you raised earlier, yes, we will have additional layoff notices going out. We have to have, by state law, right, or by NEA law, June 1st is the deadline to get the teacher notices out And
f-
do we have
and for
a deadline for Council 94?
is 2 weeks before the end of school, so same time period.
Same time period. So, any additional layoff notices have to be done by that time. With that being said, we will still continue to look through, as, I discussed earlier. We will have a sit-down to look at every single line item in our budget. And if we can find any additional savings that are not people-related, then, we can certainly take a look at calling people back, and I hope we can. And we also have, and I know pie in the sky, if the state legislature decides to throw more money into education beyond the aid that's been predicted, that would give us some additional funding as well. But we won't know that for a while. The one thing that's a little bit difficult is, and, speaking about the town's charter, we have no choice but to take action by the state mandated deadlines. The town's budget isn't necessarily going to be set in stone until after that. So I think that's something we need to try to advocate for change on. But with that being said, the preliminary vote is what we have. And again, they didn't actually take the vote last night. I expect that as they're meeting right now at the same time as us, that they will take that vote. And that we can proceed with our planning. But it's not going to be final till it's final.
So with 3.5%, how many layoffs are you looking at between NEA and Council 94?
Well, that's, I can give you a dollar amount, $140,000.
Yeah.
So we're still discussing it right now.
That's the delta you're looking
Yeah.
for now?
So it's going to come from, it's going to come from both NEA and Council 94.
Because June 1st is the deadline, the only thing we're guaranteed by state law is $1. So we're laying off, assuming 3.5?
Yes.
That's
scary.
That's scary, and that's puts us in a precarious position to not lay off more.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that, but we're not, that, we're not guaranteed anything other than, basically what we got last year. So, that's 7 members. We don't know what's going to end up happening through their discussions. It's another month and a half. I don't know that I'm comfortable taking that risk.
So if we went down to maintenance of effort, how much would that be?
$1 million, I think.
Losing another million?
We're at,
Yeah.
the 3.5%'s 988,000, and then another 300 in capital.
But anything that we get less than that, and if you don't lay off staff,
Well, I think,
what would you do?
I agree with you, but based on what we pretty much, Peter and I pretty
But
much.
what would you do? So worst case, they came back, didn't lay anyone off because we chose to roll the dice and put our trust and faith in 7 members. They come in and say maintenance of effort, where would we even go?
We would have nowhere to
Court?
go.
Ben? I mean, honestly, it's an honest question. If we don't lay off, if that's where we would need to go, and we chose not to, and we missed those deadlines, and we get maintenance of effort, we would have to go, we would have to challenge it.
Yeah, but there are probably other things we could still cut.
I think,
You can eliminate sports,
Okay, so now you start looking at
everything else.
everything else that's not sort of mandated,
and
other
remember,
than staff.
yeah,
Yes.
remember, we're keeping that Fort Barton building
Yeah.
under
yeah,
our
yeah.
control right now. And if we found ourselves in an emergency situation, we could turn it back over to the town and eliminate all the expenses associated with it. That would be significant.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I want to make sure that we understand by only laying off to the 3.5, that we may be creating a situation or an emergency if we get less than that, where we have to start looking at
Yeah,
other
we're gonna-
things. To Ben's point.
This is something that has to be addressed at the charter, 100%. Because
Yeah.
Agree, but right now, we're discussing FY '26 budget, and we're talking about layoffs that have to be done in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I want all of us to be aware of what that means if we don't do staff cuts below that 3.5. And to Ben's point, we then have to look at everything. With after-school activities, any kind of stipend, anything that we could cut, anything that's not contractual
Contractual or mandated.
or mandated.
Yep.
Okay.
So my question would be if they did take a vote tonight, because they're meeting right now?
It's preliminary.
So if they took a vote tonight and they voted on the 3.5 plus the capital, like they spoke of last night, even though they've made that vote, it could still change?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
they have right up until the last day of their vote per charter to change
Yeah,
that.
that's why I kind of asked them to give us a, a necessary prelim number for that reason, because as we know, our budget is personnel, pretty much.
Right.
Because remember, last year, we didn't have a budget until like the 29th of June.
Correct.
Yeah.
It was almost,
And there was they had a meeting scheduled for June 30th
Right.
to reconsider their
And
vote.
don't get me wrong, I'm not putting this on the council. I do think if they've given us a good faith number, that they'll try to meet it. But I just want to be realistic that, that's a lot of time. A month and a half is a long time. And we just need to understand what could happen if we don't. I just want to be, in a position where we know what we're going to have to do if we do not do layoffs below that 3.5, that we're going to have to go to other places. Just want
You're
everybody to
absolutely
understand.
right. But I do, just like Mr. Andrade indicated, I'm confident in the discussion that took place last night, in that the council will follow through with their preliminary thinking on the budget. And again, by charter, this is the gap that we're going to face unless it gets fixed. This is every
horrible.
single year.
Yeah.
So we, it's definitely something we need to advocate for change in the charter for, so that we're not finding ourselves potentially in a hole because of a budget appropriation made after June 1st.
And understand, we always had fund balance up until now. So if it
And
would
we
have
don't.
changed,
No, that makes
we always had a contingency. We do not anymore.
Yep. So,
Well, Diane, I agree. Based on the discussion last night, I don't see that number changing, but I also understand what you're saying, Deb. It's like Plan A, Plan B.
Yeah, no, I just want us to be aware that if it does, we have to go other places.
Yeah, it's scary, but I think the council made the right decision last night from a town perspective.
Oh, and I'm sure, and
Yeah.
you always, that's a difficult job, weighing the needs of the entire town. They were elected to do it, the charter was changed and they gave them the right to do it, so I'm not in any way suggesting that they won't do what they say, but again, it's, until it's final, it's not final, so I
Yeah.
just want to make sure, like Jocelyn, Plan A, Plan B, just let's be aware.
Yeah, we are preparing for that, in a small, number, if you would, because we have so many layoffs already. There's really not many other areas to go,
Okay. Well, so maybe it's like Ben said, it's like now, if it's Plan B, whatever that delta is, you're now looking at things that aren't staffing.
So when you're talking about turning Fort Barton over to the town, then the adult program would come out of that, I'm assuming.
right, those savings would be negated. You're right.
And then it wouldn't be used for an educational building.
Right.
So they would lose that 35,000.
That would have to be via vote, Kim. I mean, that, she's just throwing that out there. The five of us would have to decide that, and I'm not anywhere near
Right, yeah,
close
just-
to.
No, and I only brought it up as if we're talking about catastrophe, and the town were to back down on its initial vote, and we are caught flat-footed because we haven't laid off enough people to account for as low as maintenance of effort, then that is one of the solutions. It wouldn't even cover the whole thing.
What would the savings be? But that wouldn't, it would be a savings to us, right, but not to the town, because then they would be
Right.
responsible for.
That's
okay.
correct. That is correct. But without the funding, we're relying on the town for the funding.
Mhm.
If we don't have the funding, we have to find ways to operate our schools.
Yeah,
Right.
I think last night went well, and
It did.
that's,
it did.
yeah, that's an MOE dollar situation, you know.
But it's a good discussion for us to have so that everybody understands the dynamics and the potentials.
Yeah, and like I said, in the past, we always had that fund balance to rely on. Well, that's 100% gone now,
Yep.
so
Yep.
just don't have it. Well, good, and I'm glad last night went well.
Yeah,
No,
was
it did.
good. I think it was a good meeting.
Yeah, excellent.
All righty. Any other discussion on FY '26 for tonight? All right, hearing none. We'll move on to item I, Tiverton Resolution Out-of-District Transportation. And I think Jocelyn may have alluded to this earlier. In your packet, you have a resolution that I'll be asking for school committee support for. This is a resolution that a number of school districts have approved and are continuing to approve. It speaks to what amounts to a redistricting of the statewide transportation regions. And this came out of the Legislative Commission that was led by the Portsmouth representation, and is just one of several of the recommendations that they made. We have already voted to support some of the previous recommendations. This was their very last one for this year's session. They will continue, I think, to make improvements down the road. However, this particular resolution, what it does is it's in support of change of those statewide regional districts. It does not impact the district that we are in. So there would be no change to us, no savings for us at this time. However, there are other districts that are paying in crazy bills, if you will, for statewide transportation. In some cases, the districts that were drawn in the 1970s when we had a couple of tech schools and districts were busing children to those tech schools. It's a much different landscape today, and we have certain districts that are in effect providing busing of 20-plus miles for students that choose not to go to school in their own district. So this will help other parts of the state to recoup some funds. It will not hurt a large amount of children who are currently taking advantage of these long routes. But that has been identified, in the districts that are involved are going to grandfather the existing students. So this is really just to show the support for our fellow school districts in this action. So I am in full support, and I would like yours as well. So do I have a motion to accept the Tiverton School Committee resolution on statewide transportation, out-of-district transportation? Sorry.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Are there any comments or questions?
I would just encourage anyone who wants to learn more about this to look up the Legislative Commission online about this, look at the hearings. If you can catch anything that Mario Carino shares, he's very well versed in transportation, and there's definitely more work to be done, but this is a good start.
Yep.
Can I just ask, once signed, who's going to make sure that it gets forwarded to the senators and the reps and the governor?
That would be Mrs. Giannini.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Okay, next we have superintendent search update. I put this on the agenda really just to, I know that the school committee's been kept apprised of the activities, but I want to make sure that the public has the same level of knowledge at this point. The screening committee did meet for the first time last week with Dr. Mercurio for their first session. I understand it went well. We have 24 applicants for the superintendent position that screening committee will go through. They're in the process of reviewing those applications and resumes as we speak. They will be meeting again tomorrow, is it? Thursday this week? Okay. To discuss the resumes that have been received and decide on which of those applicants they will ask to come in for interviews. And those interviews are currently scheduled, the first round of interviews for the screening committee, currently scheduled for the week of May 19th, next week. Our interviews, which would be considered the final interviews, once they come up with the finalists, our interviews will be scheduled for the first week of June. So that's the week of June 2nd. Okay. I had hoped to do it Memorial Day week, but we have a number of conflicts here on the committee. And I think this is important that we get all 5 of us into the room for this. This is our, one of our top 3 tasks as a school committee. So I think it's critically important for us to try to get all 5 of us there. Well, that is actually one of the questions I have for this committee this evening. The week of June 2nd, I know Mr. Scungio is available to join us during the evenings of June 3rd, 4th, or 5th. So what do we have any of those evenings that are definitely a no for anyone? And I'm going to ask for your help here for us to manage this.
I can do the 4th and the 5th. The 3rd is a CLAC meeting.
Are they going to have a meeting on the 3rd? Even with them meeting the last week of May?
Well, it's
For the awards?
On the last week of May, the 3rd is to prepare for the next year.
Okay. Anyone else have any suggestions? Any other conflicts?
No.
So why don't we say tentatively June 4th?
So no June 7th,
June 7th.
instead we'll do June 4th at 7, or we're going to try earlier,
TBD,
TBD, depending upon when,
depending on how many candidates are going to be forwarded to us
and their timing.
and their timing and our timing.
So June 4th will hold.
Yes, please, everyone, hold June 4th on your calendar. That's a Wednesday.
Should we hold the 5th as well?
Yes, please. Hold the 5th as a, just in case, but we'll shoot for one night of interviews on the 4th. If we need to go to 2, we can. Okay, any questions? All right, that is my update for the superintendent search. Thank you. Our future meetings, on the plate here, we have Wednesday, May 28th, and that is what we had agreed to back in when we set the calendar. However, that coincides with the high school awards evening. I am going to ask for everyone's flexibility in meeting on the 27th, which would be the day before, on a Tuesday, day after Memorial Day. And I would normally say let's perhaps skip it, but we do have layoff notices that we need to get out. So can everyone here make it on the 27th?
I can.
Yes.
Yep, okay. At this time, I do not expect that we will have a large meeting.
7th is the
CLAC awards.
Yes,
Did you
there's
say that
27th
already
to
and I missed
CLAC
it?
Awards. I'm going to have to schedule it after.
Okay,
And for everyone's knowledge, the CLAC Awards start at 6?
6.
Right. How long do you expect them to take place, to last?
Hour and a half.
So if we were to schedule for 7:30, we would be safe?
We'll get it done.
That's too late.
Sorry?
So, 8, are you asking for 8
The only
o'clock
thing you're gonna be doing at
Because of
7:30
time
is just approving
for the
layoff
awards?
bonuses.
In open session, yes. We may need another executive session to talk about the superintendent search.
So if we keep it short, 7:30 shouldn't be bad.
It won't be a full agenda.
No, there would be nothing else on the agenda unless something urgent pops up between now and then. We would cancel our regular meeting that is scheduled for the 28th. Everyone okay?
Yes.
I'm not here the 28th. Let's do it then. Let's do it then.
You're funny. But that is the high school awards night, and that one, I don't want to miss. I think we are all invited to that every year. We're invited to the CLAC Awards as well. And, you know, I know for one, I try to make it to all of these events at the end of the year. To me, it's the best, most fun part of being on the committee. So, all righty. So that, we will scratch May 28th, go to May 27th. And right now, we have a meeting scheduled for June 10th. We will now, I will now entertain a motion to go into executive session under Rhode Island General Law 4246-5A2, Administrative Contracts, 4246-5A2, Council 94 Contract Update, 4246-5A2, Legal Advice for Chartwells, 4246-5A, Legal Advice on the FY25 Budget, and 4246-5A, Legal Advice on the Superintendent Search. Do I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Polish?
Yes.
Kim? Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes, and I'm a yes. We are in executive session. Thank you.